Welcome to South Bronx Talks, where every week we speak to a guest so they could speak on the perspective on the world today. I'm your host, Javi Lopez, and today's guest is Coach George. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is George Nantwi. I coach the girls U19 team at South Bronx United as well as the men's team.
Is how do you start your career at soccer? Like where, when, and what make you love soccer the most? And
Yeah, definitely. I was born in Ghana. So, in Ghana, we have a saying, the minute you learn how to walk is the minute you learn how to play, right? So, soccer's been with me since the day I was born. All my life, I remember when I was a kid, at the school, that's what we did. Even during school, when we had our lunch break, rather than eating, we just had a field right there. So, we just go play. In my grandmother's house, we had a big courtyard. So, me and my cousins, we just spent all our time playing. So, soccer's always been with me and it's never left me. So, that's really where the love for the game, I got the love from the game from.
like literally the way I started playing soccer is so hilarious. Cause like I was in the school team, but I was really little. So my mom was paying like a lot of money with me with the soccer team, and then I was just kicking rocks to birds. And then my team was like all the way in the different field, and I was already just running around chasing birds and kicking them with the rocks and stuff, which is hilarious. And then to this day, she still makes fun of me. She was like, "Wow, with that money, we could have done so much more things."
Something else, right?
Yeah, and she was like, she until this like literally every time there's a family meeting or something like that, she always tells the same story. Like if Javi one time, if Javi goes to professional stuff, I might tell this to all his friends so they could laugh at him. Just she's hilarious. And then my dad just sometimes will be like, you see, if it wasn't for us paying that all that money, you wouldn't be where you are right now. So don't complain. So like that, you just
Yeah, I guess that's a good way to look at it. That's a good way to look at it. For me, it's like I remember when I moved to the U.S. I moved here when I was 10, and it was no soccer then, right? So this is like
yeah.
the mid 1990s. It was like everybody played baseball, basketball. So the only soccer I got was on TV, but in my house nobody liked soccer, which is weird, right? Like I'm the only person who's like obsessed with the game. My dad was more into like boxing, basketball, football, the American sports. So I kind of grew up to love those sports as well, but soccer always stayed with me. So to get my fix, I would just watch soccer whenever it came on TV. And my sister, actually, we 10 years apart, but she used to just stay there and watch it with me. So
That's cool. I mean, actually, we came to the country like at the same age, which is pretty crazy. Now that I know
mhm.
that from you, like when I was 10, also I came in, but luckily I came in 2014, so soccer was a little bit more advanced.
Yep, for
Like
sure.
NYCFC wasn't still a thing, but
Yeah.
like it was starting to. But
Uh-huh.
soccer was something at least.
Yep.
I'm pretty lucky. Since you said in the beginning, you coach for the girls U19 and the men's team,
Mhm.
but I know personally as a soccer player in SBU, you one of the first coaches, one of the first staff member for SBU. So I just want to know how do you start with SBU and how everything happened until today.
Yeah,
So
so I started at SBU. It was interesting. So one of my college buddies, he was on the first SBU board, and so it was me and him. I was helping him coach a girls team in Brooklyn, right? So after work, I would head to Brooklyn, and sometimes I wouldn't get home till like 12 or 1 because I was doing two teams. And he knew I had a real interest in just coaching somewhere closer to home, and I didn't want to be his assistant. I wanted my own team. I wanted to be a head coach. So I think at the time SBU had the boys U14, and that summer they were expanding. This is June 2009, so they were expanding to a boys program, a boys U16, and they needed a head coach. So he came to me. He was like, "Hey, I have this opportunity for you. We There's a new club up in the Bronx. That's where you're from. They need a boys U16 coach. You always, but you've been bothering me for a while. Hey, let me get my own team. Let me get my own team.
yeah,
And this one is also closer to you. So it all kind of worked out. So I remember the first tryout. It was a rainy day at Stevenson High School. It was me, Coach Andrew, and I forgot who the other staff member was, and it was only like 4 kids showed up. And that was really it. So I've been there ever since. Really, so that's really how it started. I think from the beginning, once we started, we knew like we could build something special. And you knew it was a good way to also help the kids out. So that's what kind of kept me on. From then, that's what started me. Like that's what gave me the motivation to keep doing what I do, and there's still the motivation to this day.
yeah. So we know. Well, I personally know that you have coached a bunch of teams,
Yep.
so I know every team has like a special part in your heart and stuff like that. But what team do you enjoy coaching the most? I want to ask you also an individual question about coaching a girls team, because of course coaching a girls and a boys team is way different.
Uh-huh.
So I just want to know like why like I know you used to coach the correct me if I'm wrong, the U19 boys and then the
Yep.
men's team now, and then
Yep.
now you coach the girls team also for I think 2 years in a row, 3 years in a row.
Yep. 2 years. 2 years now.
So I just want to see like which one has like a special place in your heart, or like which one is you enjoy the most. I mean,
Well,
as a coach, you enjoy just coaching, but like
yeah, I think, to be honest, I enjoyed all the teams I've had. Each one was different. Each one played a different brand of soccer. And the kids, at the end of the day, my players are what makes it special, right? I always tell my players, like, we play so many games. I have most of my teams, I have them for at least 3 years, right? So within that 3 year span, we play so many games, so many tournaments. And, to be honest, most games are not that memorable, right? It's only like, the big games when you came back from, 3 goals down to win, when you win a championship, a semifinal, those are the ones you remember.
yeah,
But, I always tell them in 10, 20 years, when we sit back, we're not going to remember those games. We're going to remember the experiences, right? The van rides, the ups and downs, the jokes at practice is the experience.
yeah,
That's what I think soccer is, the experience. So, in that regards, I had too many experiences. I could write a book about all my teams. But, I think every coach also, I think the sentimentalist in me will always be the first team that I had. Because that was the first team I had as a coach, and I was closer to them in age. I started coaching SBU when I was 22, if I'm not mistaken. So I think they were at that time 16, so they always looked at me more as a big brother than as a coach. So I was able to form that. Think about it, 16, 22 is not that big an age gap. So I was able to form a much deeper relationship with them than I think with my other teams, because as I got older and the teams got younger, the age gap just got bigger.
yeah,
So I think my first boys team definitely. And then once I switched over to the girls, I've only been with them 2 years, and like I said, your first team, every coach will tell you the same thing. Your first team is always going to be the most memorable because that was your first thing. Just like in life, right? You always remember the first things you did. So, in that regards, I would have to say that I think some of the boys that I've coached later on, they're not gonna, when they see this interview, they're gonna say, "Hey, coach, what about us?"
yeah,
But every team is a little bit different. But in terms of just coaching boys and girls, I think people have this misconception that it's such a big transition. But for me, it really wasn't. I have the saying, once you pass the white line onto the pitch, you're an athlete, and that's it. I don't treat you
yeah,
any different because you're a boy or girl. And my girls would be the first ones to tell you I drill them almost as hard as the boys, if not harder, right? Because I just believe you're an athlete. You're an athlete. I don't prescribe to a certain like philosophy because they're girls or boys. And to be honest, I actually enjoy coaching the girls a little bit more than the boys, because it's just more attentive during practice sessions. I think just pay a little bit more attention. When I do a drill once, I don't have to do it again. And I'm sure being a boy,
yeah,
like I do it once, I got to do it at least a couple of times with you guys before you get it. So it hasn't been that big of a transition, believe it or not. I've enjoyed every moment I've had with the girls, and especially like the transition from last year to this year, you can see the improvement. It's
yeah.
almost day and night, big time.
Well,
And
yeah,
unfortunately, like the pandemic has kind of robbed them of a spring season where I think they were really going to do well. But on the flip side, I'm going to have most of them back for another year. So, we just get on and we just get ready for next year.
yeah,
Yep.
and like
Yep.
all of them are very very smart players as
Uh,
well. So like when sometimes you let me join to help out stuff like that, I just see it and it's just like there's no difference. They're still hungry to win stuff like that, and like
Well, I think it's just human nature, right? We put us in a competitive environment. The will to win would just kind of take on itself, right? So, they put in the work at practice. They would meet 2 days a week on the practice field. So how I run my sessions. I push them to be their better selves, not just physically, but mentally as well. Because like you said, soccer is a mental game, right? Like being able to bounce back from adversity. I remember one game in the fourth, we were down 2-0 at halftime, and they just there was no point at that moment that I felt like we were going to lose the game. I just always felt they had it in them. And they showed it, and they ended up winning the game 3-2. We should have won by more, which is always, the coach in me speaking. But, it just spoke to the mental toughness. But, some days your physical and your natural ability is going to win you the game. But, on days like that, it's more your mental strength that gets you over the line. And, that's not just lessons for soccer, but it's lessons for life.
yeah. Question is like, how do you think soccer will be affected by the whole pandemic? Like, as a professional standpoint, as a coach standpoint, And also by as a SBU coach standpoint, like how does it feel like it's gonna affect the whole entire soccer world? How's it gonna affect the organization, in your opinion?
Well, I think this stuff from like a micro level, which is just SBU. I think it's affected us because it's robbed the seniors on this year's team. It's robbed them of so much, right? The tournament, being getting scouted by like college coaches and just enjoying their last ride with SBU. I think I always coached the U19 teams, boys or girls, so I've always had them in their last year at SBU. And what I always tell them is, your last year is like the last dance almost, right? Like it's the last ride. You make the most of it. And, I think if you look at it historically, the U19 teams at SBU tend to be the most successful because they've been with the program for a while. The hunger to win, and the need to win is almost urgent. So you have to win it now, and I think they just enjoy it more because they know after this, it's college and other things to look forward to. But this is also going to be your last experience with your friends, some of whom you've played with for almost 5-6 years. So from that perspective, just from a human perspective, I think it robs them of that, and it's unfortunate. I feel for them. I think organization wise, it's been tough. Adapting everything, especially on the academic side, to the classroom, because I know you students, you guys have been complaining, hey, it's a lot of work. So I know the staff has been doing their best to make sure you don't miss a beat in the classroom, and it's tough. I think it's more of a mental thing. I think organization, we're gonna be fine. Once everything gets back up and running, we're going to be back on the field doing what we're going to do, and we're just going to get on with it. But I think it's more like the mental component of it, preparing yourself, working hard during the winter as an athlete, as a coach, and as an organization, and spring, as a player, spring season is the biggest season, right? Because that's when everything happens. It's longer, it's more fun, the weather's a little bit better, more tournaments, and, just the mental idea that you can't even have that, right? And you're so used to, being on the field this time of year. We on the field at least 4 or 5 times a week. Not being able to do it even once, I think that's really like the biggest challenge. And I think it's the same for soccer as a whole, and even at the pro level, right? You see the pros on Instagram and social media, they're itching to go out there. Think about it. You've been doing this all your life, and then we've never seen nothing like this in our lifetime. Not being able to just go outside and kick a ball with your friends. That just is almost, it sounds like a movie, right? Or a dream, but unfortunately, we're living through it. So I think, I'm looking at it more from a mental perspective. I think that's what the biggest effect is going to be. How do you live with that? How do you kind of process and grasp that, you haven't been out for almost 2 months now, and the way it's going, look like it's going to be another couple of months before we even get a semblance of, being able to go out there on the field and just kick it about with your friends more than anything else.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a big thing. But also like talk about the seniors and stuff. Just talk about like the professional soccer players. People who are already old enough, like they just lose another year. Now they got retired sooner, I guess.
Yep.
Because like you home, it's not the same like exercise you're gonna do in the gym, or like so you also like not really taking care of your body correctly.
Yep.
So like you just losing like another year of soccer that you could be playing, enjoying yourself.
Yeah.
And I don't really know like once you retire, this year will count. So like it still like sucks.
Yeah, and I was even thinking like, this summer was gonna be a lot of like tournaments. You had the Olympics, you had the Euros, you had the Copa America, and I believe the Gold Cup as well, if I'm not mistaken, maybe next year. But all I know is like, for some players, this was gonna be their last tournament with their national teams. And they moved it to next year. Next year they might be too old come next year. Injuries might happen. They might not be in the best form, so they might not get selected. So, for them, they lose something as well. Like you said, is for some, this was it. This was gonna be it. And especially the ones who are retiring at the end of this year, like this is it. But hopefully they might reconsider, be like, you know what, I need to go out playing. So they might stick around for another year, but who knows?
Yeah. So growing up, who was one person you look up to the most? Yes, one person you look up the most, and also, what is one coach you also look up the most right now?
One person I look up to the most in terms of soccer or just generally.
Soccer and January as well. Whoever
Well,
you.
so generally, the person I looked up to the most was my uncle. He's my namesake. So he was the person I was named after. He's a pastor, so deeply religious man, but he was super smart. And so I remember when I was a kid, I used to spend all my time with him. Whenever I had a chance, he'd come pick me up and just hang out. And then when I was in the process of coming here, he's the one that, took me for my visa interviews. He'd always make sure whatever I needed, I got it. Because I didn't grow up with my parents in Ghana. I lived with my grandmother. So the first 10 years of my life, I just lived with my grandmother. And then when I moved here is when I lived with my parents. So he was kind of like my de facto dad. So he was the person I looked up to the most. And, I was able to see him a few months ago when I visited Ghana. And I haven't seen him in a while. So, I was happy to do that, even though we stay in touch. And then, from soccer, I think my favorite players have always been defenders. But, growing up, I liked Samuel Kufuor. He played for Bayern Munich, and he was from Ghana as well. Actually, he's from my hometown. So, he was kind of like the hero, in the hometown where I grew up in. Think about it, kid from Kumasi, Ghana, ends up playing for Bayern Munich and winning the Champions League. It's a pretty inspirational story, yeah. And I think we all looked up to him. So, I always looked up to him as one of my favorite, not just as a soccer player, but I think just as an inspiration. And and in terms of coaches, right now, I don't really necessarily have a favorite coach. I think I've as a coach myself, I always look at what other coaches are doing, obviously, and you try to learn from them as much as you can. But I also think part of being a coach is also being creative in yourself. And knowing the players that you have and working with the players that you have, your players' strengths and their weaknesses. So my saying is, hey, you always try to improve, try to strengthen your strength and improve your weaknesses, right? And that's the philosophy that I kind of coach by and almost live by. But in terms of coaches, I admire like young coaches. I think a lot of them are right now in Germany. So Marco Rose, he's the coach for Borussia Mönchengladbach.
She's doing pretty good this past
And the coach at RB Leipzig, Julian Nagelsmann, he's actually younger than me. He's like 32, and he got Leipzig, in the quarterfinals of the Champions League. They're fighting for the Bundesliga. And he's only 32, so it's kind of very admirable. Like somebody so young, in a profession that's usually, reserved for like a little bit older people. But I love that, and a lot of the good coaches these days are young coaches, and they're very progressive in the way in which they play the game. So you try to learn something from them as well. I think overall, my favorite coach hands down is Arsene Wenger, because I grew up an Arsenal fan. I'm still a diehard Arsenal fan, and I think he revolutionized the way the game was played, especially in England. And he did things that at the time was like nobody was doing. And I think he was a revolutionary in that instance. And I've always admired him, how he stuck to his principles. Especially I'm sure you're probably old enough to remember Wenger out. But he was like, hey, this is how I play football. This is my vision for it. I'm gonna live and die by it. And you gotta admire that.
Yeah, he kept it real since like the day one.
For sure.
Yeah. So talk about players. So I know a lot of players from Africa, of course. One of the players that I actually did a project on was on Drogba.
Uh-huh.
He I never read a lot about him because I did a research paper around him. He was first of all, I think he did a big part in the civil war in his country, and then he also helped out a lot in his own country. I just want to ask you any questions like, did he also help out not only his country but the whole entire Africa? And how did that impact you or your family or friends from Ghana?
Well, I think Ivory Coast is right next to Ghana, so they literally are neighbors. So we, some of my borrowing friends, you always joke like we cousins. Culturally, we share some similarities. Some of the ethnic groups kind of border both countries. So we had that in common. And I think like Drogba, leading up to the World Cup in 2006, the Civil War broken out, and it was more a political war than anything else. And I think the day they qualified for the World Cup, which was for the first time in their history, he was like, hey, maybe this could help galvanize us as a nation, and that's the beauty of like soccer, to just galvanize people and just, bring us all together. So, so for that he did for his country, but I think on the continent, he's like an icon, right? Like I always say, you hear stories about, Kofor, like the example that I gave, he's a kid who was born in Ivory Coast. He grew up to conquer the world, literally, playing for Chelsea, arguably the best striker they've ever had. He won them the Champions League, in 2012 against Bayern Munich. And he's just a cultural icon, not just what he does on the field. It's easy to be like, oh, he's either Drogba, right? He's one of the best strikers of all time, but it's also like his work off the field. And I think that's, in the long run, that's what people on the continent really gonna remember him for.
So if you have one thing to change about soccer from today, what would it be?
I think it's too many games. I think I'm really of the belief that, it's too many competitions, and the competitions are just coming thick and fast. And, I think Asamari used to call it the red zone, right? And he used Alexis Sanchez as the example. I think it was like a 4-year period. He didn't have a single break. He played a full season with Arsenal or Barcelona. Then every summer he had a tournament with Chile, right? And it's just too much, but part of it is a lot of soccer is very commercial now. So a lot of teams and a lot of organizations, that's how they make their money. So if you don't play, you don't get paid. So, they just, the players almost become like surplus and they don't think a lot about them. So, as a fan, I enjoy it. Obviously, I want games on TV all the time, but I think, if they could kind of break out the calendar a little bit and just spread out the number of games and stuff, it would be great for the player. So, I think that's one thing I'll definitely change about the game. In terms of rules and stuff, I'm okay with it. I know a lot of people will say, oh, you get rid of VAR, but, I'm actually a fan of it. I think, technology is affecting every part of our lives, and soccer shouldn't be no different. And just like everything else, when you start out, there's always going to be, errors, but it's trial and error, right? You make a mistake, you learn it as you go along. And, I think 5 to 10 years is going to be such a big part of soccer that most people are going to forget. It was such a heated topic when it first came out, right? So, think about it. At first, soccer used to be 2 points, not 3 points. There used to be no yellow cards or red cards, right? So, all these things, somebody had to take the ground and say, hey, this is how we're going to do it, and this is how we're going to move forward. And, I think is one change to the game that's been impacted by technology, but I think it's just the tip of the iceberg. You're going to see more changes. And, as a coach and you as a player, I'm sure, we don't have VAR yet in youth soccer, but, I think soon we will. But I think, it's just one of those things that we just have to grapple and just deal with it, because is affecting, technology is affecting everything that we do. Just like me and you talking right now over Zoom.
Yeah.
Is a consequence of that, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of like VAR, but the referees in CSO, they make a lot of offsides. So I think probably we could have VAR as an offside only. I would be happy.
We got to bring it to the
lazy.
We got to bring it to the next league meeting so you can make your case in front of the board.
If I could, I would.
To bring it in.
Oh my God, if I could, I would. Because, oh my God, they've been missing so much. I mean, I consider myself, well, of course, I have one of the most smartest coach in the world. Well, in my opinion, I had Coach Robbie. I had Coach Himani. You remember him? I had a lot of coaches who were mental, really, really smart, not only in the field or in the game. So I know, so for example, for Coach Robbie, I never played a high line like that. But with Coach Himani, I sort of did. So there was a lot of times where they didn't call size. I was like, "Come on, man! You're gonna tell me that you're telling me that this man is not right?" Because we follow his tactics. You're telling me that he's not right.
But I think part of it is officiating is not an easy. It's not an easy job. It's you have especially even at the pro level. When we watch it on TV, we have the hindsight of instant replay, right then and there. So even before VAR, refs didn't have that. They have to make a split-second decision. And just like humans, we make errors in everything that we do. So I think it's when it's against you, you cry about it, but when it's for you, you're okay with it. So it's both sides of it. So I think I try to, especially now, when I coach, I don't give the refs a hard time, because I understand it's a difficult job and somebody has to do it. So and I think honestly, most of them really genuinely believe they made the right call, and just you live with it.
Yeah. But what's one coach in the whole entire world you would coach with, or share similarities with, I guess?
Right now,
yeah.
Like a current coach.
Current coach. I mean, you said
he's retired though, so he's not a coach no more. A current coach. It's a tough question. I can't think of one. It wouldn't be Guardiola, because I think we have different footballing philosophies. So it's tough. It's tough. I can't think of one right now on top of my head. I'm just trying to think of all the coaches. Probably Mikel Arteta, right? Because I'm an Arsenal fan. So I feel he's brought a breath of fresh air to the team. He's young. He's progressive. He sees the game in a different way, and I get to work for my favorite club. So I think he would probably be the one, or Hans Flick from Bayern Munich. I think he took over the team, and he's made him very formidable. And he's young, and I think they're only going to get better. And he's only going to get better as a coach, because he played for them. He was an assistant coach, and now he's the head coach. So, I think is only the sky's only the limit for him as well. So those will probably be the two. Like I said, I don't. A lot of coaches, the buzzword in coaching now is, what's your philosophy as a coach?
Yeah.
And I think, I want to play out the bag, play attractive football, that stuff. But I think it's just buzzwords. You got to know your players, and your players sometimes dictate how you shape your team. And as a coach, you got to also be creative and think about, hey, just because Guardiola or like Pochettino, Mourinho is doing this and that doesn't mean you have to do that same thing, right? Like Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool, he doesn't play the pretty football, but he plays effective football, and that's the brand of football he's always had. When he was a coach at Mainz, at Dortmund, and at Liverpool, all his teams are very similar because he believes in his philosophy. But that's Klopp's philosophy, and I think every coach you should have your own, and you kind of stick to it.
Okay, so let's say. Well, also, one point I was gonna say, like, Miguel Arteta is a very young coach, and he also he's very strict. Like, he came into the Arsenal team, and there was like a change immediately. Like, in my opinion, I think one of the things that Arsenal was struggling is just like the team didn't seem to want it,
Yeah.
But correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not an Arsenal fan. But like, I just feel like they didn't want it. They were just.
Well, it was a lack of discipline, right? So
Yeah.
if you look at the best way to judge a team's discipline is the goes against, right? So I think the goes against before he became a coach, and the goes against, given a certain number of games, is almost day and night. And like you said, is all discipline. And being defending is not just the four defenders in the back. I think any coach will tell you that is a collective. And then you can see it even in the performances. I think the results haven't went their way all the time. They had a tie, a loss here and there, but I think overall, if you just look at the team, every Arsenal fan will tell you is like they just improved dramatically, especially on the defensive side of it.
But they haven't lost a game in 2019 in the Premier League, though.
Yeah, but it's only like a small sample. Yeah, it's only like 5-7 games. But I think it's more like this year. I think as a fan, you come in, results are going to be hard to come by, but you just want to see, is this team improving? That's how you judge a team. Yeah. On performance, is this, when you see the performance, whether it's a win, a loss, or tie, how well are they improving? And I think everybody will tell you, like, as a fan or even as a neutral, like, hey, your team is moving forward. So, it gives us hope, and, as a fan, there's all to look forward to next season.
So, like, if you could go back, let's just pretend that, let's just imagine that, like, you are a professional soccer player, and you have 3 contracts, right? One contract is playing with your favorite player, who I think is the player that you mentioned earlier.
Go for it.
Play for the best team, get play time, or just go to a good team, get play time, also have a lot of money. Which one would you choose?
The last one for sure. I mean, it's not. I'm one of those people. I think I'm a pragmatic. I'm very pragmatic as an individual. So I think a lot of people always look at when they see athletes, they'll be like, oh, he's chasing the money. Well, duh, like it's like that's their job. I think people forget that. I always tell everybody, what's the reason why you wake up and go to work? Don't tell me because you love it. If you love it, do it for free, right? So I think I'm practical in that sense. That these people they sacrifice a lot. I think a lot of people don't know that. Especially soccer being so global. They leave their families, they go to countries where they don't know a single soul, they don't speak the language, they have to adapt to the climate, to the culture, to the fans. Especially those coming from other countries, they have to deal with like racism and xenophobia. So they sacrifice a lot, and all for what? I think part of it is they want to obviously be a pro, but I think you want to enjoy the fruits of being a pro, the hard work that you put in. If you ever seen a pro team and their training session, like the amount of work these guys put in is just amazing. And after that, they got to do the press, they got to do other kinds of stuff as well. So in life, we teach, as a coach, I teach my players that if you work hard for something, you're gonna get your just rewards in the end, right? That's what society tells us. You go to college, you get a job, you're gonna live well, right? So it shouldn't be no different for athletes. They have a skill, they have a talent, they sacrifice almost everything to get to that level. So why shouldn't they get the just results? So I'll definitely give me a good team and a high-paying job. I'll take it any day of the week.
All right, so any team, what position you gonna play there?
I don't care whether you can put me in goal. I could care less. I would, especially if it was like my favorite team, like an Arsenal, Bayern Munich, right? No, but I think you want to enjoy the game, and I think a lot of players they have a specific position that they enjoy playing. And I'm one of those coaches. I think all my players will be the first one to tell you I don't like switching players. Like one game you play here, one game you play that. I think before every season I always sit the team down and we just go over, hey, there's going to be a position. Sometimes when you switch some players to a position they might not like necessarily, there's always a grace period. I had this one player, he played right back for 3-4 years under Coach Andrew. And then he comes to me and I tell him he's a center back. And we almost, for a whole half the season, he wouldn't believe me until he finally grew into it. And now that's all he plays. So, I think, as a coach, we see the game a little bit differently than the players do, and vice versa. Players sometimes see the game differently than we do as coaches. So, it's kind of like a compromise. But, I think, like, you have a position, you love it. I generally try to let my players grow in that position so they could, I think when they enjoy the position they play, they enjoy the game a little bit more and they become better as a result. I really believe that.
Yeah, so like I play center back and like you can see the whole field. So that's what I like to see because like one thing I like to do personally is just like I see the whole field, so I know what my team is doing and I know how they play too. So sometimes I just joke around after the games and stuff like, man, I saw you like you wanted to pass it somewhere, but you just didn't. Why you didn't? Like just joke around with them, like because I mean I see like you're in the middle of the field, so you see everything. But as a left back, I also play left back. You just see like you don't see it that well. You just see your side and then probably the middle. So like it's fun. It's very fun.
Cool.
But yeah,
Cool.
to wrap everything out, thank you so much for being here in episode 3, being on my third guest. And I hope you enjoy it. And yeah, hope everybody could see you on Friday.
Well, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. It's always good to talk football. We could talk soccer forever. I think everybody that knows me know I love football. I love the game. It's such a big part of my life, and it's always been right. It's always been, and I think it always will be. So every chance I could get to talk about it, I'm always game. And I think more than anything else, I think the thing that's for me personally, and I think a lot of my soccer friends, is the fact that we're in a pandemic and we don't have soccer to make us feel better, right? I think that's the part that is really really troubling. So what I've been doing is just watching a lot of old games,
Yeah.
old World Cup games, old Champions League games, just kind of especially like the older ones that I remember when I was a kid. So I was watching Italy versus Nigeria from World Cup '94, and I remember exactly where I was that day and what I was doing, and how mad I was when Italy won because I was rooting for Nigeria. So just kind of nostalgia, bringing back those memories, makes me feel a little bit better, especially during now where we could all use a little bit of good news. So
Yeah. Me personally, I just be working now, and also I be like looking for center backs. Like I don't really like Sergio Ramos. He's too aggressive. Too aggressive. But I'm a big fan though of Real Madrid. But I be looking like center back like Joe Gomez. I also like Chiellini. Like those type of players who are like they're smart. They don't just play with don't think with their feet. I guess
yeah.
they know what to do next and stuff. Like they already know what's the next pass and the timing and stuff. So that's what I've been doing lately.
Well,
Yeah.
I think that's how I learned the game, right? From a tactical perspective. When I was in high school, I remember my freshman year, I was talking soccer with one of my buddies. He was a little bit older. I think he was a senior, and he was like, "Hey, if you want to learn the game, just watch the pros. Don't watch it to say, oh, like, at the time it was like Real Madrid, the Galacticos, Manchester United, Juventus, all the teams that we know now." He's like, "Hey, don't watch it to watch like Ronaldo, the Brazilian Ronaldo, Luis Figo, Zidane. Watch somebody in your position and watch how they play on and off the ball, so you could implement that when you play." And nobody's ever told me that before. So I went home that day, I remember, and I was watching I think it was a Barcelona and AC Milan game, if I'm not mistaken. And I was just like watching the Milan defenders because they have the best defense historically in soccer. They always
Yeah,
have great defenders. And so I was just watching them play. I was like, oh wow, it makes you see the game a little bit differently. Especially when they don't have the ball. Because, a lot of it is like, I can't do what Messi does with the ball. I always tell people that, like, you just can't. There's no way. Well, you could do what he does when he doesn't have the ball, his sense of positioning, especially, as a defender, your positioning is everything. If you put yourself in the right positions, most of the time you're just clearing the ball, clearing your lines. You're not going for that last-ditch tackle. Mourinho made a joke one time, like, if you have to make last-ditch tackles, that means you were in the wrong position to begin with, right?
Yeah.
So, I think it's always good to just watch the pros at any level, right? At any level. And you watch different kinds of center backs, right? Like you mentioned, Joe Gomez, Chiellini. Ramos might be aggressive, but, he will tell you, like, I want everything else to win in the game. I don't be this successful if I don't do something right, right? And, he's been at Real Madrid for almost a generation. And, Madrid is Madrid. You don't be at Madrid for a generation if you don't have the quality that's required. So, you watch different defenders, and that's why I watch all the different leagues. On Saturdays, you come to my house, I wake up at 7, and I don't turn the TV up till 5. I try to watch every league, watch the different teams, how they play the systems. And like I said, as a coach, as a fan, you enjoy it because it's different kind of soccer. But as a coach, you learn different ways in which other teams are playing in different systems. And it helps you become a better coach and a better analyzer of the game. And that is true for my players, and I encourage them to do it all the time.
Yeah, well, thank you for being my third guest.
No problem. Thank you, and see you soon.
Yeah. Thank you for Coach George for coming for episode 3. I hope you guys enjoy it. And if you guys have any questions, leave in the comments. See you next Friday. Thank you.